I think it's just semantics.
I think it is, but let's
I think it's
clarify
just
it.
semantics.
Well, let's have
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I don't doubt it, exactly, and that's why it's good, that's why this is good.
This is good. This is what we do.
This is terrific. So Skip, let's clarify.
Well, why don't we have Steve bring us back before we just
We're
blast
back.
into
Go ahead.
Yeah.
We're having the discussion. We continued during the
Yeah.
short break, and
Yeah.
the problem is who gets to write the legislation? Is it
Right.
real legislators,
Right.
or is it the executive branch rule makers in the what we call the administrative state? I take the strict constitutional aspect that only legislators are able to create law, that there really shouldn't be administrative law created by regulation.
Right.
And that's one of the things that has screwed up this country, because as Mike pointed out, legislators have decided we don't want to be judged by our electorate for doing stupid stuff
Yeah.
and being held accountable. That's really what they don't want. They don't want to be held accountable.
I mean, look, just take the case of the EPA. Like I said, everybody wants clean air and water. We made huge strides. Nothing wrong with that. The question is, how far do you go from managing actual toxins to micromanaging stuff that's specious and theoretical at best? And look at the approach they've taken. We've created this monster. A nominal Republican, Richard Nixon, and Congress created the EPA, and they gave it all sorts of power, but it keeps taking more and more power to itself, and it's regulating stuff that it has no original charter to regulate, and the Republicans say, let's sue it. No, you have the power, you are the legislators, you can rewrite its charter, you can defund it, you can shrink it, you can close it, whatever it is you want to do. But the proper disposition, as Skip was saying, it is the job of the legislature to write the laws. It is the job of the executive to faithfully administer the laws. It is the job of the agency created, therefore, to faithfully administer the laws that Congress wrote. So no, not that they work for Congress, but A, they're not an excuse for Congress to abdicate, and B, they're not allowed to make laws themselves. That's the point. That's the Constitution. And if Congress isn't, that is where we talk about taking back powers. You don't,
Sure.
you know, yeah, to be perfectly frank, what the president has done are all, or nearly all, impeachable offences. Just nobody's got the spine. But the bigger problem in the country is the administrative state, and is the fact that Congress has allowed it to grow. And if Congress doesn't stand up and shrink it, it will suffocate us. This is the soft tyranny that Tocqueville talked of.
Absolutely. You know, when Obama said he has a pen and a phone, he's absolutely right. And he is just using what previous generations of Congress have given him, where it has become so large, so expansive, and so intrusive that he can have it write any kind of rule that he wants, and Congress has so neutered itself, they can't stop it. And that is where we see the problem. And that's what we rail about here on Granite Rock all the time. We don't want, we're often accused, especially by a number of Republicans, most of the Democrats, saying we want to be anarchists. No, that's not right. We do believe that men are not angels, and we do need limited government. But really limited government, because the whole idea, if you go back to the Declaration, is that government was instituted to protect the liberties of the individuals. They said, we're trying to rope government in, and it has sprung loose from the fence.
So you were
Wait a minute, hold on.
Sorry,
So
Max.
the whole idea of a republic, as far as the founding fathers were concerned, they couldn't agree exactly on what it was, but it was a government of principle, meaning that those people in government followed the same laws and had to follow the same laws as everyone else. It was one uniform set of laws for everyone.
And we don't see that today.
No.
Too many protected classes, this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah,
Sovereign
exactly.
immunity.
Yeah. So please don't ask questions,
Oh yeah,
make
no,
proposals.
this is great. No, I mean, I think I just was hearing sort of, I was wondering the direction you were going, and it sounded like it ended up being sort of a semantic issue.
Right.
But this idea of what I was getting at, what I was hearing from you was that the actual what is happening, the legislation, the laws, and to some extent maybe the rules, which is sort of maybe that's where we get into this area that gets tough to figure out what people are talking about, because you're talking about rules and it means one thing or another to different people. But I was asking if you thought the actual rules should be written by Congress, people who work for Congress. Now,
And-
do you call those people agencies? Do you move, it was sort of, I was contemplating from what you were saying, this giant shift, move all the agencies over to Congress with just the bare bones enforcement that an executive would need. Do you
No.
call it agencies? Not, I don't even think we need to go back down to that road, but I think this is not what I was getting from you, and what I was trying to say is this idea that more of what is enforced needs to be written by Congress.
Congress and
Yeah.
to some.
Absolutely.
That's what I was getting from you guys,
Not
yeah.
more of,
Yeah.
only by.
Yeah.
Congress
Well,
would,
certainly more from now. We should be.
Well, there'd be an improvement.
That's what you're saying, yeah.
Congress, and to the extent they need them, staffers should be putting together the laws under which which the agencies will then execute. So no, the agencies shouldn't belong to Congress. Created by Congress, destroyed by Congress, but they don't belong to Congress. Because the agencies execute the law, they are part of the administrative branch, or the executive branch. They belong to the president. The problem is when you give agencies virtually unlimited power and you put them under direction of the president can effectively direct them to make whatever rules the overly broad law that created the agency permits. And so if you give an agency almost an unlimited charter and say to the president, you go ahead and direct them, well, he can do what he wants.
Yeah, that infamous statement out of Obamacare, the secretary shall. Well, if I was president, I know what I'd be telling my secretary what to do in this case. But that, Mike has that all-important thing. When you give an enabling set of legislative acts to the president, they can do whatever they want, which is basically you say, Congress says, not up to us, and it's all to prevent that accountability.
It's like an open-ended direction, authorization of military force or declaration of war that says to the president, go get on with it, we don't care what you do now.
In other words, there's no feedback loop that inhibits the growth of these things.
Well,
Mike, is Alex calling us?
Alex will call line 1 at 9:39.
Okay.
Sorry, 10:39.
Sorry. Housekeeping.
Nice.
Okay.
Oh, almost too far.
Deflected by the presentation.
And I've got his number.
all right, so I'm going to
Yeah.
turn the tables
Okay, great.
on you.
Okay.
Um,
Wait, you haven't yet?
yeah, this is true. This is true. Hey, you got to come back more often. This is
This is
being
great.
a lot.
Yeah,
This is a
this
lot
is
of
really
fun.
great. I agree.
So since you're up on the hill
Yeah.
and reporting, how bad of a bubble is it? Because you're listening to us and you're saying, oh, this is really good, because we're probably expressing opinions that you don't hear up there.
That most people don't hear. Yeah.
You know,
That's
Ted
true.
Cruz is being
That's
deemed
true.
headline today. Bob Dole, President Bob Dole.
Yeah, it's in the newsroom.
Yeah, and that Ted Cruz is an extremist. We're called extremists here in New Hampshire
Right.
because we look at the stuff the way that it was actually written to be done. Words have meaning, and yet, what do you mean? You'll hurt all these people. You've got a process for that. You're not following the process. Would we be looked at as complete loons if we were to go up on the hill?
I mean,
Because we're waving the Gadsden flag and the whole bit?
I feel like no matter what my answer is, I'm going to disappoint you.
No,
I'm going to say yes or no. But I don't know. Washington, first of all, don't judge yourself by what anyone in Washington thinks of you. That's number one. You know?
We've
don't.
never
We don't, and Ted Cruz doesn't,
Yeah,
and Mike Lee
exactly.
doesn't, and
which
Rand
is why
Paul
you're, which is
doesn't.
why you're great, right?
Which is why we
yeah.
like those guys,
Right.
and we support Ted Cruz, or most of us do, because we didn't think Rand Paul had enough of a chance. We like him nearly as much as Ted Cruz otherwise.
It turns out he agrees with you, Rand Paul. Apparently.
But,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
the Progressive
yeah.
Caucus
Yeah.
in the House, where a lot of the top leadership were actually avowed socialists before they said, oh, we'll never get elected and get into where
Yeah,
we need
I
to.
think
What would they
yeah.
think of us?
Oh, well, that's a whole different question. I almost wonder if you would get, in a weird way, some more respect from progressives than you might in the Republican Party. Because I think,
Because we're honest?
I almost think that they have that same sort of passionate, diametric view of what they're doing in the way that you do. You know, I think that they're very direct, they have a very clear vision. You obviously, you're saying some of them are socialists. That's obviously, that's a very clear. That's one direction. And most Democrats obviously are not socialists. But I think that well, I guess that's debatable. You just gave a look, but I don't know. Most Democrats are in the House have not been official socialists, but I know 45
What happened to all the
have
blue dog
sponsored the
Democrats?
universe. Well, now we know what happened with
Yeah,
that.
Some of them
But-
became Republicans, and most of them got just subverted by the party.
But I think that I think Republicans, I would, in a way, you might run into more friction as you have been here with other Republicans. I think that there's just a real, some people call it a soul searching. I mean, other people just say it's a power fight for who has power. But I think that, I just think, and to me, that's why it's so important to be here and so important to cover politics right now, because I think this is a very decisive moment in how we look at who we want to be.
So what
Right.
I see, what I've
Yeah.
seen myself in the House, out of 170 Democratic legislators, I see maybe 20 or 30 who aren't shifty.
It's
secretive.
interesting, right?
You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
in other words, there are 20 or 30 who actually seem to me like they actually care about the working class and are the old traditional Democrats, the John F. Kennedy Democrats who are there to help people.
Right. The real
The
workhorse.
vast
yeah.
majority of Democrats just go along and get along and do as they're told, and they're there to protect their pension, they have an interest in a law firm, they have an interest in some government contractor, they're there for the money. I see very, very, very few Democrats who actually seem to
And
care.
Republican leadership's like that.
Yeah.
Oh, the New Hampshire House. The New
It
Hampshire House.
absolutely is.
And there are about 40 or 50 or maybe 60 Republicans who are rhinos, who are under Jasper, who don't care. Your whole family burns to death in their car. They don't care about cancer clusters. Like I was saying before, they don't care about AIDS, they don't care about crime, they don't care about traffic safety. They don't care about those issues. These are crooked politicians who are there to steal. That's what I see from the inside. It doesn't look like they're concerned about real human beings. They're not concerned about principle. They're not concerned about doing the right thing.
Just all about the process in the game, or
They're there for themselves. They have some kind of vested financial interest of some kind. They don't care about people.
I mean, you mentioned the bubble. I mean, the Washington bubble is it's real. It's very real, and it's real for every sort of different type of person that inhabits. And so there's one bubble for lawmakers. I was amazed. I had as my guest a Democratic lawmaker too. Like one of these reporter dinners, which I don't go to a lot of, but I was on this board for this organization, and he'd been in Washington for 30-some years, liberal Democrat. And it was a few years ago, and I said, "Oh, hey, have you been up to, I don't know what I was saying, like H Street or over to U Street, all these great parts of Washington that were really having interesting things happen?" And he said to me, "No, I haven't. I've never really been off the hill." And Washington itself is a small town. It's not very hard to go but Washington's pretty small. So I think that's a very characteristic experience. Now you can say, to some degree, it's good these lawmakers are getting back to their home districts more than they used to. They're not staying in Washington for months at a time. But on the other hand, they're not associating far out of their group. Some of them could say they don't have time, but on the other hand, I feel like their experience is very limited. And I also feel like, sort of what you're saying, you can recognize when you talk to a politician if they're really talking to you, right? If they're really thinking about what they're saying, or if they're just giving you the kind of blank script, appropriate robot answer. And it feels like 10 years ago when I started on the Hill, you probably had a 50-50 split. 50% of the lawmakers were there, were really thinking with you, and then 50% were sort of just trying to keep their job, trying to keep my salary. And right now it feels like it's maybe 80-20, maybe worse than that. There's not a lot of senators I feel like I can go up to, and even if it's off the record, which I don't like to do, but even off the record you don't feel like you're quite getting the real deal, and it's frustrating. It's hard covering the Hill because everyone is now just, it's harder to trust people.
Right. I just want to revisit a point that you made earlier. You said that we might find ourselves having more in common with the ultra-progressives in as much as being passionate about the results and how we view the country and the Constitution. I'll draw one big distinction there. When you get to the far progressive point, they have a mantra: the end justifies the means. That is, or as the Marxists say, you have to break a few eggs to make an omelette. They don't care if the economy or people die in order to get to their utopia. What the constitutionalists have as a completely different view is that we know what ends we want, but we don't agree that any means can be used to justify it.
Well, that's obviously critical philosophical point you're making. I think what I'm saying though is I think you get less eggs thrown at you from the progressives right now than from perhaps some other members.
Not here in New Hampshire.
That wouldn't
I
surprise
don't know,
me.
but just on Washington, I think, and especially when they're in the minority, they've sort of got their own. Sometimes the minority in Washington, one of the secrets there is, it's a lot easier being in the minority. You know, it's easy to kind of put up a fight, and you don't actually have to write bills the same way that a majority has to write. You know, so when you're in the majority and you're fighting on actual legislation, which your party is, that's a real fight. Democrats right now, they're kind of making hay. They're the opposition party. It's a very different dynamic. They have real concerns, they have real issues and real bills, but Republicans are the ones governing in Congress, and that's a very different dynamic.
One of the things that we see often is the idea the progressives want an enforced collectivism. Basically, everybody has to be all in this communitarianism that seems to be running rampant right now. Versus, I would easily categorize us as we're just part of the leave us the hell alone coalition. And, you know, we understand we need roads plowed like yesterday and schools and stuff like that. Well, to the extent that they are.
You guys should come to Washington.
Oh, yeah.
see,
Well,
see some roads that need to be plowed.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we just laugh. I think it's hysterical. Yes.
I'm embarrassed.
How many non-essential workers had to be
Embarrassed.
sent home? Okay, is anybody really taking advantage of non-essential? But anyways, I mean,
Yeah.
we are seeing more and more, just government leave us alone. And the
Yeah, I do
Democrats
think- I
say,
mean,
do you get any kind of a sense that there's
Yeah.
any kind of support for leave them alone?
I mean, I do think that you can find, and this, I hear probably some of your listeners might not get where this thought is going. But I think that you can find some Democrats who would say that they are also leave us alone types. Honestly, I do. And I think you would.
As long as you do what we tell you to.
And I think you'll be shocked at one that I'll list. I think take a state like Nevada. Nevada is a swing state, right?
Yeah.
Nevada is a very libertarian state. There is no one in Nevada who wants anyone telling them what to do. It reminds me of New Hampshire in that way. And yet you have, who's their senator? Harry Reid.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't think those things are necessarily in conflict.
He's
I
calling
think,
early.
You know, so I think that,
You can't pick it up yet, though. Go ahead.
Yes, I can.
yeah. Hey,
But he'll be on there. Okay. Go ahead.
yes we can.
Leave him on hold.
Hey.
Hello.
So I think that there are, and I think it just
Hi, Alex. This
to be
is
honest,
Skip
depends on the issue.
from,
You know,
Groktalk
it
and
depends on
GrokTALk.
exactly what the issue
We're
is,
almost
you know.
at the end of this present segment.
That's what Michael
Steve's going to put you on, let you listen in, and then he'll bring you on when we're ready.
All right. Well, thank you.
Yep, very good.
We're going to get to our
Hold
next
on.
guest in a minute after we take a short break. Lisa, thank you so much for coming in and wrestling with us.
Guys, what a pleasure. I can't believe we didn't even talk about the race. I can't
I
believe
know,
it.
we can get to that.
Amazing. All right. That's great.
We don't mind.
Oh, okay, good. We'll sit back and listen.
All right, everybody stay
Thank
tuned.
you.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Alex Rubian from the New Jersey Second Amendment Society to talk about some gun rights issues and Governor Chris Christie.
GrokTV.